right, what's up out there to all of my fellow gold diggers? This is your girl Rita, also known as the self-proclaimed gold digger. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I am so glad to have you. But if you are a fellow gold digger, welcome back because I love and I appreciate each and every one of you. And today it is time for a Side Hustle Saturday, and I am going to be giving you tips about how you should price your products or your services for your business. All right, so before I get started, y'all know I got to do my social media checks, and I was having a little bit of technical difficulty. So let's see. Let me make sure. Y'all, please let me know if you, for some reason, cannot hear me. Just because before I got on, there was some stuff going on. So let me check really quick and make sure I am good. Let's see. All right, so I'm good there. And let me check one other spot and then we'll get started. So I know y'all usually enjoy Side Hustle Saturday, and I enjoy doing it for you guys because it's more of me sharing about my business, sharing some things that have worked for me and my business. And I love helping you guys out. All right, so I think I am good on all ends. So let's get into it. So I have some tips that I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to try and keep you here too long. And if needed, I will make it a part 2 series with all of the different tips and everything. Okay. But before I get started, I do have a couple of church announcements. So first church announcement, we are doing a no spin challenge that is coming up, not this coming week, but the following week. So that is going to be the week of April 13th through April 19th. If you don't know what a no spin challenge, check out my last Tipsy Tuesday video real quick. It's just we're challenging ourselves not to spend money for that week in order to save up for something else. But I give you the full details in the Tipsy Tuesday. And then also the book club, the new book club book, I promise you, it will be out tomorrow. So it's going to be out on Sunday because I know I was supposed to drop it earlier this week. This week has been crazy. Just because I was tying up a lot of loose ends for the week. So before we went on spring break, but I will have the book club pick out tomorrow. And I hope y'all will join me for the month of April with that particular book. And it is going to be a fiction book. Okay. All right. So that concludes your church announcements. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Okay. So let's get into it. Side Hustle Saturday, it originally started because I would share with you guys about my side hustle. I was doing mystery shopping. I was doing notary work. I was doing a lot of different things. So I've had several different side hustles, but most of you know me from mystery shopping and the notary work. I don't do as much mystery shopping anymore, but I definitely still do my notary work. Now, lately though, probably since the past year, any of my Side Hustle Saturdays, they are not specific to any one industry. So you can apply this to any business that you have, especially if you are a small business, because that's essentially what I have. I have a small business. Like at my office, I do have employees. So I do have that particular perspective, but also with my notary business, I am a solopreneur. And what that means is usually you're the only person working in your business, which is what a lot of other small businesses are, or side hustles are. You are the only employee in the business. Okay. So I come at it from my perspective as being a solopreneur, me being the only employee and having to work my business, as well as coming at it from an aspect of me being a small business owner and having employees work for me in actual brick and mortar location. Okay. And one of the questions that I get a lot of times from a lot of people is, well, how do I price my products, or how do I price my services, and what is a good price? And I will always tell you, you will never hear me give you a price that you need to set. Why? Because prices fluctuate. Okay. Y'all see that every day. The price of gas, it goes up and down. Okay. The price of clothes, it changes. So no one can tell you and please, I'm saying this not, as kindly as possible, not to be mean or anything like that. Please don't expect for someone to tell you what your price should be. Ultimately, only you can kind of determine that what your price is going to be. Okay. No one can really tell you, because no one, unless they're a business consultant who's working one-on-one with you. But chances are, if you're a small business owner, solopreneur, you're not working with a business consultant. So only you can make that assessment, and only you can make that determination of what your price should be. So people keep telling me, what should I charge? What's a good price or whatever? And part of that, no one can really tell you. You have to do the research for your particular industry, one, also for your particular location, because someone in Florida can tell you this is the price that they charge, versus someone in North Dakota will tell you a totally different price. So you have to know what the prices are for your client that you're servicing, as well as for your area. A case in point with that is like real estate. Like, you can get a house a lot cheaper, less expensive down south than you can in New York. Okay. So the location of it dictates the price. Also, the price you pay for a house in New York versus the price you would pay for, let's say, a house in Georgia. You might be paying, let's say the house is $500,000. The house, you pay that price for a house, $500,000 for a house in New York. The amount of house you're going to get for that price is going to be drastically different from the amount of house you're going to get if you paid $500,000 for a house in Georgia. So that is what I mean by saying you really can't have someone specifically tell you what the price is or what you should be charging, because it's going to vary from industry to industry, as well as from region to region as well. Okay. So just keep that in mind when it comes to pricing your stuff. So you will never hear me say what you should price. And it's not that I'm trying to avoid the question. It's not that I'm trying to be elusive or keep my prices from you or anything like that. That is not my idea. That is not my intent. The whole reason I don't tell you a price is because your variables might be different from my variables. What applies to you might be different than what applies to me. So I can't tell you what to charge or anything like that. Now, you can ask me what I charge or whatever, but also I don't mind sharing what I might charge for a particular service. But even with that, I know you're asking me that to figure out what your price should be. And you're not taking into consideration those other factors that I mentioned to you about how you really need to consider who your client is, what region you're in, and your industry and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So let's see. And then I have, let me see, I'm taking a sip. What's up, Levon? I'm glad you were able to join. I hope things are going well for you. She says, good advice. So glad to see you. So yes, and that is what we're going to talk about with some of the tips. So if you've ever asked me for a price, or if you asked me what should I charge and I didn't give you a straight answer, that is why, because it just depends. If you probably asked me that, I probably would have followed it up with questions for you so that I could get a better idea of what all you're up against, where you're located, all that kind of stuff, to help you get a ballpark. But even still, I am not going to exclusively tell you what the price is. Also, you have to be careful too when relaying your prices as well, because then people will, like in certain industries, they'll look at it as like price fixing. Like, you can't all come together and collaborate and stuff and come up with a price or whatever, because then it could be deemed as price fixing, which has consequences in and of itself. Okay. Now, I thought this topic was very apropos given what is going on in our economy currently, with all the talks about tariffs in the tariffs that are going to be increasing, which is ultimately going to lead to increased prices for all of us. Okay. No matter who you voted for, what party affiliation you're with, the prices of products and services and all that kind of stuff, it's going to ultimately affect all of us with all of these tariffs, and the prices are going to increase. So, as I said at the top of the year, it is very important that you get a side hustle so that you can make some additional money, because things are starting to look really, really strange. Things are starting to look really, really funny when it comes to our money and what we're making. And you see people losing their jobs and things of that nature. So get a side hustle so you can have some extra cash in the bank. Also, like I mentioned too, we're doing the no spend challenge. We really, really, really have to be smarter with our money. Not saying you're not smart now, but just things are different now. And because things are different, things are changing, you really want to reevaluate like your income, the money you're bringing in, as well as the money that you're spending out, and thinking about ways how you can increase your money, make more money, because the changes are coming. It's about to affect us. Now, if y'all were upset because Dollar Tree went to $1.25 tree, buckle up and hold on tight, because things are gonna be a lot different once these tariffs take effect. Okay, so Dollar Tree might be $2 tree at the end of the day, because a lot of those products are coming overseas from China, and China ain't too happy with us right now with these tariffs and everything. So Dollar Tree might be $2 tree. Okay, so just bear all of that in mind. And with that being said, if you have a small business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're selling products or even selling services, because you might be like, well, I don't have a product, it's just my service that I'm providing. But even with that, and we'll go into that as well, if you have a product or service that you are selling or providing to the public, you really need to look at your prices and get ready to see what adjustments you might need to make in your prices, as well as when it comes to your business in regards to the tariffs. That's why all these businesses, that's why the stock market is tanking, because everybody is uncertain about what is going on. Businesses, corporations, they are uncertain about what's going on, and they're starting to look and see what do we need to do? How can we, save money? What do we need to roll back on? So don't be surprised. The government laid off a lot of government employees and stuff, or released, fired, whatever. I can't even say it was a layoff, but they fired a lot of government employees. But with these tariffs coming, the whole idea of having a business is for you to make money. That's the whole idea. So if you want to make sure that you're making money, think about what these big businesses are. If they're having to pay a higher fee, and if they decide to pass it on to the consumer, they have to do that in order to make money. And they're probably going to have to cut some of their workforce as well, or they potentially cut some of their workforce in order to keep their profit margins high. So with the government firings, don't be surprised if also these private companies as well, they might have to let people go as well. Because things are just not going to be feasible. And even so, I know some people who are in support of the tariffs, they are saying that it's supposed to help bring jobs back to America. But the jobs, y'all, to be honest, some of these jobs that are overseas are jobs that y'all don't even want to do. Okay, we don't want to do these jobs. So these are some of the jobs that, one, we don't want to do, because one, they're a lot of hard work, and two, they don't pay a whole lot of money necessarily. They might be entry-level jobs. So if if you went to college or stuff like that, or you've gotten an education, you don't want to do these types of jobs, so to speak. And some of these jobs, even though they're entry-level, yes, some of these jobs, quote unquote, I say jobs, come back to the US, but they might not be done by people. They might actually be done by robots, because they are so entry-level. So yes, these jobs are outsourced to other countries where they are not as developed as the US, because it is cheaper cost of labor. And because it's a cheaper cost of labor, that also saves the company money. Okay. So that's just my 2 cents on it. You can take it or leave it. I'm not an economist. I'm not an expert when it comes to the economy, but I know about my pocket. I know about my coin, and I know that these things are going to affect my coin and affect my profits. So if big businesses are in a state of, I won't say panic, but they are really getting serious about looking at their bottom line, trying to figure out what they're going to do, how are these things going to affect them, and try and put in measures in place so that they can still be profitable. Because if your business isn't profitable, guess what? You go out of business. That's how these businesses go bankrupt. They are no longer profitable. And even before all of this happened, there are businesses going bankrupt. And I've said this before on my channel. I am so grateful. I'm so thankful for the business that I have, especially my brick and mortar business, because I look around and I see businesses closing around me and in other areas. And so I have to say, hey, thank you, Lord, for still sustaining my business and still keeping me afloat and everything like that. Because some of these businesses that are closing down, they have been around a lot longer than me. They're a lot bigger than me. They have more dollars backing them than I probably would ever have. And for them to shut down or have to scale down and shutter some of their locations and things of that nature, it just makes me very grateful for the opportunity that I have to be in business and to sustain my business. So I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly or anything like that. So y'all don't do the same. So pay attention to the climate that is around you. I try to do so because I know if other businesses are affected, large businesses are closing down. I also look at what does that mean for my business and how can I stay competitive to be able to still sustain myself in the market and everything. Okay. All right. I talked to y'all long enough, about tariffs, about the big businesses. So let's get into the tips. But let's see what's up. Okay, Still Rocks, I see you got on. He says, yo, glad to see you. He says, just getting here, jumping in. I do a lot of private rides from the people I've Ubered before. I have to consider the mileage on my car, the gas, the time, how close they are to my next trip. Yes, so these are all factors you need to consider. Well, specifically in your business. So I will give it to Still Rocks because he is taking what all of us should be taking. It's like a holistic approach. One of my things that'll lead me into the first tip is the first tip is making sure you understand your costs, because oftentimes when we start a business, as entrepreneurs, especially our service-based businesses, I will say that. So if you have a service-based business, this especially rings true with you. The product-based business, it can still happen as well, but I see it more so with people who are offering a service. And that is, we will look at the time that we spent in providing the service. And because it didn't take us, and I'm speaking more so from the notary work, just because it didn't take a lot of time, we feel like we don't need to charge a high price or charge a lot of money. So sometimes I tell y'all, like the notarizations that I do, they might take 15 minutes. Now, if you made $20 an hour at your regular job, you might think, well, this only takes me 15 minutes. It's okay for me to charge $20 an hour. And let me say the disclaimer, these are arbitrary numbers. I'm not saying this is what you should charge or whatever. But if you made $20 an hour at your job and you did a service that only took 15 minutes, you might say, hey, I will just charge $20 an hour for the particular service and I'm good. And you're thinking about the time that you spent. But as Still Rocks mentioned, you're not thinking also about the how far it is, how much gas you're spending, the wear and tear on your car. Also, if you provide a service and it took you 15 minutes, now you have another service to provide, and maybe it's at an hour from the time that you finish the other one or whatever. You got to think about how much time it's going to take for you to get there, as well as how far away it is and everything. So all of that you need to factor in. And all we take into consideration is that it only took me 15 minutes to do it. But typically, even though your job might pay you $20 an hour, they're usually keeping you there for several hours. So the back and forth with your car is not happening. Like you make one trip to your job and then you make another trip back home at the end of the day. versus if you're doing Uber or servicing different clients and traveling to the different clients. You're going from one client to the next client to the next client, and you're not taking that into consideration. All you're thinking about, oh, is it only took me 15 minutes to do this particular thing. Also, the other thing you're not taking into consideration is all the stuff on the back end that could possibly be affecting you. Like, okay, them calling in order to reach out to you and book the service. How complicated is the service that you're providing? Did you have to make multiple phone calls? Do you have to send, confirmation text or reminders, or make a confirmation phone call? Do you need to do a follow-up phone call with them? Are you sending out follow-up stuff? What is, like, if you have a website or stuff or something like that, or even a social media page, how much time are you spending, devoting to that and creating stuff for that, or making flyers or making business cards? All those little expenses, those are business expenses, and you should have allocated a certain amount of money that you are willing to spend each month, or that you're not, and you may not necessarily be spending in each month, but that you are setting aside each month to be able to provide for your business cards, to do a flyer or whatever, all the little marketing stuff, and making sure you're also factoring the time that it takes for you to do these things. And just like Still Rocks mentioned, like the wear and tear of the car on your car. So you have your car, you're normally going to maintain it, but if it's your business car, if you're able to write it off as a possible business expense on your taxes and stuff, then also you want to make sure you're keeping up with the maintenance of it and factoring in how much does it cost to maintain it, and what percentage of that is coming from the business and what percentage of that is actually coming from the personal, because it's a personal car and a business car. All of those things you have to take into consideration. So oftentimes for service-based products, not service-based products, for services that people are providing, we will only take into consideration our time, and that's what we base our pricing on, is the time. Also too, as I'm speaking more specifically about my notary business, people will often price their notary services, and they might do this also for regular services, and you price it based off of if everything goes right. You don't take into consideration what happens if something goes wrong. So I also take into consideration, okay, if everything goes right, I only have to make one trip to this particular person, or it's only going to take me, 15 minutes to do it. But if things go wrong, things aren't in place, things aren't ready, and it actually takes me 30 minutes, or I have to go back and come and see them again, I have something factored into my price for that, so that my time isn't wasted, the second trip isn't wasted, and I can still make money that way. Now, does it happen every time? No. But for the times that it happens, those other times make up for it. It's kind of like insurance. That's kind of and I use the term insurance loosely, because it's like I just have a little cushion factored in. So if everything goes well, that's good. That's a little insurance or a little cushion for that, that 1 in 10 one that doesn't go right or whatever, or I have to spend a little bit more time. So I'm not losing money or anything like that. And it's not that I have to charge this other person a huge fee, because I'm charging a little bit for each of my individual clients, which makes up for the times where it does not go right for me. Okay. So that was tip number 1. You need to understand your costs. Now I talked about it with service-based businesses, but also product-based businesses, you may underestimate the cost that it takes for you to create your product. What I mean by that is sometimes we'll be like, hey, this product cost me, $5 for me to obtain. Because it cost me $5 for me to obtain, then I'm going to charge the person $10 or whatever. So, and you might be like, okay, I doubled my money, or I pretty much made my money back and covered the cost of the product. But even with that, you need to take into consideration, all right, What happens if that price goes up? What happens too if you have to ship the product to the person or whatever? What happens if they didn't like that product, or it was a faulty product or something like that, and now you have to replace it and get another one? Do you have the cost factored into that? How much time, how much money is it taking for you to be able to fulfill delivery of that product? Like, are you actually delivering it yourself? Are you shipping it to someone? Because if you're delivering it yourself, you need to factor in the time it takes for you to drive or meet the person, as well as like your gas and things of that nature. If you're shipping it to someone, you need to take into consideration not just the shipping cost, because you'd be like, well, I'll just have them pay for shipping. But not just the shipping cost, but also how much does it cost for packaging of it? So you putting your product in a particular package and shipping that off, are you adding like a little thank you card, all that kind of stuff? You want to take that into consideration as well and count all your costs and understand all of your costs as well, and how is that affecting your bottom line. Okay, so at the end of the day, you might be like, okay, it cost me $5, I charged them $10, I made a profit of $5. But because you didn't take into consideration, I delivered it to them, which took me 10 minutes to get there, 10 minutes to get back, and I still had to package it in in a nice little bag. Like, you're not just gonna, if this was the product, you're not just going to hand it to them or whatever. Usually, even at, even though some stores are getting away from it, even at Walmart and stuff like that, you put the stuff in a bag at least. So how much is it going to cost for you to put it in a bag, package it, however you're going to do it? And you might be like, oh, well, that little bag and the card and stuff like that cost me, 25, 50 cents or whatever. And then for me to drive there and back, my gas, maybe that gas was like, I don't know, $2 or something like that. But also your time, you haven't factored that in. And now once you factor in your time, I'm sure your time is worth more than $3, because then once you get over there, you start talking, and then even though it was 10 minutes to get there, 10 minutes to get back, you end up spending 20 minutes talking to the client. So now you've really lost like 40 minutes of time just delivering a $10 product to somebody or whatever. And now you pretty much are either breaking even or in the hole on the cost of it. So make sure you understand all your costs, and also take into consideration your time. So for product-based businesses, you need to consider all of your costs as well as your time. And for service-based businesses, we tend to only factor in our time, but we don't think about all the other little costs that are going in for us to be able to deliver that service, or provide that service to the individual or to whoever the client is. Okay, so understand all your costs. Product-based business, don't just consider how much the product costs for you and how much you're going to mark it up or whatever. Consider everything. Service-based businesses, don't just consider how much time you're spending to do the service. Consider all the other little things that are associated with you providing that service, getting to the client, having the understanding, expertise, follow-up phone calls, all that kind of stuff, as well as any back-end issues that you might have to account for, like a website, business cards, all those different things. So understand your costs. Also, if you have any employees, if your business has employees, you have to take all of that into consideration too. How much is it costing you to pay your employees, and is what you're paying them enough to justify what you're charging your customer and everything? So sometimes, and is your employee a good reflection of the business to help you get more business in there? Because sometimes your employees can be a liability and can actually be costing you money. And I don't mean just costing you money because it costs you to pay them, and now you're like, I don't have enough money to pay them. But they could be costing you money because of their poor customer service, and now you're losing future business, because I can guarantee when someone has a bad experience at a business, they'll probably tell, and I'm just guessing, they're going to tell somebody. They might tell 10 people that they had a bad experience at your business. But if someone had a great and amazing experience, it's really rare for them to go and tell somebody. Like, they might, because I'm guilty of it. I've had good experiences at businesses and stuff. And unless somebody specifically asks me about it, I am not necessarily going to be like, yeah, y'all should check this business out, which I need to do better with. But let me have a bad experience. Now, I also won't say that I will go and blast the company if I have a bad experience. But most people, if they have a bad experience, they can't wait to tell somebody about it. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Your employees might be costing you in that regard as well. So let's see. Hold on. Let me see. Let me make sure. All right, I got some spam in the comments. So I don't know who Miracle Basil is. And Rajay, I don't know who you are. But let me go ahead and see. Hold on. Y'all don't send any of these people any money. Let me see how I can block this, if I can. I don't even see it. Okay, maybe. All right, maybe YouTube and Facebook have already taken care of it for me because I can't see how to block it or anything like that. But y'all don't send those people. Don't send those people any money that is putting stuff in the chat, if y'all can see that, or in everything. All right, so that was tip number 1. So make sure you understand all of your costs. Tip number 2 that I have is to know your market. Y'all know I preach this to you guys all the time, especially when it comes to whenever I talk to you guys about marketing or anything like that. You need to understand your client demographic, who your ideal client is, as well as the market. Just like at the beginning of the video, when I used the example of if you bought a house in New York versus if you bought a house in Georgia. If you paid the same price, if you bought a house for $500,000 in New York versus if you bought a house for $500,000 in Georgia, they are going to be 2 different houses. Like you're definitely going to get more house for your money in Georgia versus in New York. And I mean the city of New York. I don't know about the outskirts of New York and everything, but you're definitely going to get more house for your money. So you have to know your market and know what it can hold. So you can't be coming from New York thinking that you're going to be able to charge New York type prices and you down south or something like that. Things are different for each region. Also, if you're in a rural area versus a more urban area, more populous area, city, that kind of thing, then the prices might be different. So you have to know your market and know what can be tolerated for that particular market and everything. So if you're in an area where there's low income individuals, then you can only charge so much. If you're in an area where there's a lot of high earners, then yes, your pricing structure is going to be different. So you have to take all of that into consideration. And also you need to know what the rate is for your particular area. And companies do this. I shared when we were talking about insurances and stuff like that. They tell you guys that you should shop your insurance rates about every 6 months to see, and don't be loyal to any particular insurance company. But one of the reasons why they say for you to shop your insurance rates every 6 months is because the insurance companies, they are gathering data, they are gathering information about your particular area of where you live. So if you live in an area where there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of break-ins, things of that nature, then your insurance rates are probably going to be higher because your risk of getting your home broken into or your car broken into, it increases. Versus if you live in an area where there's low crime, not a lot going on, your rates are probably going to be less because, and I should also say, that's not the only thing they look at, okay? They also look at, especially like for cars and stuff, like, how many accidents are in the area and stuff like that. But they're looking at what is it for this particular area. So that's why you could live in one place and the insurance rate could be one thing, and then you move to another area, you move out to a rural area, and maybe now your insurance prices drop. Or the fact that you don't drive your car that much because, you just don't travel a whole lot, or you you are in a city and stuff like that and don't have to go that far, your insurance rates might be lower. So just like the insurance companies are looking at what factors in your area can affect you, you need to be looking at what factors in your area can affect your potential that you can make from your business when it comes to the clients that you're attracting, as well as the products and the services that you are selling to those said clients. So you gotta, like they say, you gotta read the room. Read the room, read your area, and see what can my market hold. So am I able to charge this particular price for this particular service? Also read the room in terms of, is this product or service even needed in my area? Okay. If it's a bunch of, if you have a childcare business, but you're in an area where there's a bunch of retirees and, their kids are in their, 40s and 50s and stuff, and they in their 70s and 80s, you don't need to be marketing your childcare business in that particular demographic. Okay. You want to go where there's younger individuals, 20 to 30-year-olds who are starting and building families, and market your childcare business. So read the room, see if your product or service is even needed in that particular area, or is it best served? I shouldn't say needed. Is it best served in that particular area? Also, seeing what kind of price can you offer, because same thing, if you're in an area where it's a college town versus an area where it's a well-established, middle-age, middle and high income people versus an area where it's a bunch of college students, the price that a college student is going to be able to pay versus the price that someone who is middle-aged and middle income and high income and earning are going to pay are two different things. So you have to know who your market is, who you're marketing to, and what also are they able to afford. Okay. The other thing, now I get on y'all all the time about this. So I am going to say this. I meant to say this at the top of the video too, but I started talking about all the things going on with the tariffs, and I kind of forgot because I talked a little bit longer than I wanted to about the tariffs. But I preach this to you guys all the time, that y'all need to know your worth. Know your worth, know your value. And some of y'all do not know your worth, know your value. And part of that is because you don't even know, you don't know the cost of all that's factored into the types of products and services that you're providing. Okay. So you have to know your worth and know your value, because I see this quite often with people who are starting their own business, especially more so the solopreneurs. And I get it. It's because you don't really have anything. You don't have a template. You don't have a guide. You don't really know where to price. But hopefully these tips that I'm giving you will help you determine where you need to start your pricing at. But you will undervalue your product or your service. So you charge too low. So the tip that I have for you is make sure you avoid charging too low for your product or your service. And you might say, well, I need to start off low so I can attract customers. And my counter to that would be, are you attracting your ideal customer? Are you attracting the customer that you ultimately want to be able to sustain your business, or are you just trying to make a sale? Because sometimes you're cutting your price of whatever you're providing, your product or your service, and the people you're attracting are not the people you want, that you really, really want. They're not the people that you want. And then you get frustrated, and then you get upset, and then you wonder why people are complaining about your product or service, or they're having an issue, or you're getting complaints, and they're giving you negative feedback and stuff like that. And part of the reason is because you cut the value of your product or your service, and now you've attracted these low paying clients who are also of low value because they are not the ideal client for you. Okay. So you going back to knowing your market and knowing who you want to attract, that will help you decide and make sure that you're not underpricing yourself or undervaluing yourself. So I see it way too many times, and people end up losing money, and you end up I won't say going out of business, but you kind of stop the business or halt the business because the business is not profitable because you started off too low and now you've attracted these people that you really don't want to deal with. Okay. Like even in my regular business, one, I have certain products priced a certain way because I wanted to attract a certain type of client. I have them priced a different way to attract a different type of client. And some things I won't say people won't even I already know I've eliminated some people because it is out of their price range. And it's not that, I won't say I'm discriminating or anything like that, but it's not the necessarily the ideal type of client that I want in that particular product or whatever. So it's like I know the person who is interested in this doesn't mind paying the price in order to have that. And the person who doesn't want to pay that price, they need to go somewhere else because they prefer a different type of product, okay? As well as a different type of quality product as well. And that's okay with me because I have it priced accordingly because the product of itself in and of itself has a certain value and a certain quality too, but also I'm trying to attract a certain type of quality in terms of my consumer as well. So be very careful with that. A lot of times when you underprice stuff, when you cut your price down, the people you're attracting for that particular price are not the people who are going to sustain your business and continue to support your business. They came and they got the product or they got the service because it was that price. As soon as you try to go to your regular price or what you feel your product or your service is worth, they're not going to support it because they mainly came for the price. I'm not going to say they only came for the price, but they mainly came for the price. And once that price changes, they're gone. And if you aren't attracting the right people, your business will be going too because you just aren't generating enough of your ideal client and customer. So all of these tips go hand in hand. You got to know your target market as well as your target client. So therefore you're not underpricing or undercutting any of the prices out there. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking at how we're doing on time. So I'm almost at the 45-minute mark. So I'm not going to go into the next set of tips. So I told you guys I knew it was a lot of tips. So, and I'm looking at the comments too to make sure I don't have any other comments. It's probably going to be a part 2. So that means I won't say likely. I'm going to come back next Saturday and do a part 2 of how to price like a pro when it comes to your business, especially if you are a new entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, or having a side hustle. So stay tuned for that. But real quick, I'll do a recap on the tips that we covered so far. So the first tip was, and we only done 3 because I've been talking. I'm sorry, y'all. I started talking a lot. The first tip was you have to know your costs. All of your costs. Make sure you understand all your costs and everything that is factored into your product or your service when it comes to your business. The second tip was you must know your market, okay? And the third tip was you got to know your worth so that you avoid underpricing your product or your service, okay? So I hope those 3 tips so far are helpful for you. I do have many more, but I think I'm going to try and keep it just to 10 tips. So when we come back on next Saturday, I'll do the remaining tips for you guys. And y'all let me know how y'all are able to apply these tips to the business. Be sure to be on the lookout for tomorrow's video where I will share our book club pick. And I hope that you will join me on our no spin challenge, which is going to be Sunday, April 13th through Saturday, April 19th. And if you want more information about what a no spin challenge is, then check out my Tipsy Tuesday video where this past Tipsy Tuesday, so this Tuesday, where I went into more details talking about that. All right. Well, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm going to enjoy my spring break, and I will see y'all. You'll see me tomorrow, and I'll see y'all on Tuesday when I go live again. All right, take care, guys.